This is a photo of Lake Mead in 2000, and this is it in 2022. Looking at it, the change is obvious. Lake Mead has significantly dried up over the years. In fact, for over 2 decades, there's been a continuous downward trend in it, with Lake Mead officially reaching its record low at 1,040 feet above sea level in 2022, just 27% of its original capacity, reaching dangerously close to official dead pool status. At that point, it basically means that the water can no longer flow downstream from the reservoir. Although the lake has shown signs of recovery in early 2024 due to record snowfall and rain, this is only temporary. Water levels have started dropping again from March 2024, and drastic measures must be taken to stop the lake from completely drying up. Lake Mead has become a shadow of its former self. Once a symbol of the vast resources in the southwest, it now poses a grave concern for the 25 million lives that depend on its water supply. The lack of foresight and over-allocation are partly to blame for the lake's impending demise. But how exactly did this happen, considering how important it has always been to southwestern livelihood? To understand how Lake Mead ended up in its current state, we have to take a deep dive into its history as a major water source of the southwest, the mismanagement it faced for nearly a century, and the inevitable environmental factors that come into play. The origins of Lake Mead go all the way back to the 1920s. At this point in time, the Colorado River was untamed, uncontrollably flowing from the Rocky Mountains and traversing all the way down to the southern Gulf of California. Supplied by the then plentiful snow from the mountains, the Colorado River was notorious for its unpredictable flooding, which posed a significant threat to the up-and-coming agricultural developments and settlements in the region. To prevent further economic damages that these floods were causing, it was decided that the Hoover Dam, originally known as the Boulder Dam, would be built to even out water supply to the region's farmers throughout the year. By 1936, the Hoover Dam was officially completed. The Hoover Dam is a monument of human achievement, standing over 700 feet tall and generating enough electricity to power over 1 million homes. And once the waters of the Colorado River backed up, 2 of America's largest reservoirs emerged: Lake Powell at the upper basin, at the Arizona and Utah border, and Lake Mead at the lower basin, located at the Arizona and Nevada border. These enormous reservoirs became a crucial water source for millions. Lake Mead, in particular, supports major cities like Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Phoenix, providing a steady water supply for municipal, industrial, and agricultural needs. These reservoirs have enabled these once barren landscapes to become the fertile agricultural lands, and, for better or worse, the urban centers that we know today. The lake has also evolved into a popular tourist destination itself, with its natural beauty and recreational possibilities attracting millions of visitors, which has contributed billions of dollars to the local economy. But the foundations of the lake's mismanagement were already laid out in its earliest stages. In the early 1920s, the Colorado Basin states were anxious about securing their share of the Colorado River. By this time, and still true today, California's rapid expansion was a cause for concern. Neighboring states feared that California might claim priority rights to the river's water. To them, it was unjust that California would possibly have the lion's share of water rights, while contributing the least amount of runoff. A federal report recommending the construction of a dam at or near Boulder Canyon, which would increase California's access to the Colorado River, did little to ease these concerns. This concern soon escalated to alarm when the Supreme Court ruled in June 1922 that the law of prior appropriation applied across state lines, meaning that a rapidly growing state like California could establish priority use of the Colorado River water, significantly disadvantaging the slower-growing states in the upper basin. Thus, a negotiation between the Colorado River states was called for to determine the individual states' right to the river's water supply. At the time, interstate compacts in the context of water disputes had never been done before. In 1922, the Colorado River Compact was signed, which sought to allocate water rights among the 7 U.S. basin states and Mexico. This agreement divided the river basin into 2 sections, with a demarcation line set at Lee's Ferry. The upper basin, comprising the states of Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming, and the lower basin, which includes California, Arizona, and Nevada. On the US side, both river basins have an allocation of 7.5 million acre-feet for each section. The compact also specifically directs the upper basin states to deliver 75 million acre-feet in any 10-year period to the lower basin states. and in the event of a severe drought, the upper basin states can be required to allocate a certain amount of water to the lower basin. Later on, it was also established that Mexico is mandated to receive 1.5 million acre-feet annually, as stated in the 1944 Water Treaty. However, these allocations were carelessly based on overestimating river flow data. These agreements assumed an annual flow of 16.4 million acre-feet, a number that was derived from an unusually wet period rather than the actual long-term average flow of the river. In truth, the Colorado River flow is much less than that. 3 centuries worth of data actually tells of an average flow of 13.5 million acre-feet, and flows are highly erratic too, ranging from 4.4 million to over 22 million. And this is where a key player comes in, one who is rarely mentioned in history books. Eugene Clyde LaRue, one of the leading authorities on the Colorado River at the time, compiled a comprehensive report on the river and its tributaries for the United States Geological Survey. As early as 1916, LaRue already concluded that based on the discharge data he recorded, the flow of Colorado River is, quote, not sufficient to irrigate all irrigable lands lying within the basin. He also warned against the construction of the Hoover Dam, believing that evaporation will further deplete water supplies. Although politicians and water managers have been made aware of the bad math behind the agreement, LaRue's warnings were not heeded. As a result, the allocations have always exceeded the actual available amount of water, causing a persistent deficit. A decade after the compact was signed, LaRue's estimations proved to be correct when a prolonged drought struck the region, and tree ring investigations showed that the river carried 30% less than the amount that the compact was based on. And while the compact sought to equally divide water rights, it's clear that some states have been benefiting more than others. California, the very root of why the compact was made in the first place, ended up profiting from other states that were not maximizing their full allocations. For example, in 1997, California used up around 5.2 million acre-feet, much higher than their 4.4 million allocation. This agreement has created a complex and fragmented governance structure that has made it difficult to implement cohesive conservation between stakeholders, who have been aware of the impending water crisis for years. Unfortunately, action has been slow, and states have been reluctant to reduce their water usage due to obvious reasons. There has also been a lack of coordination and consensus on how to address the issue, which has led to ineffective measures to implement conservation measures. As a result, policies surrounding the lake's conservation have favored short-term gains over long-term sustainability. One example would be the drought contingency plans that were signed into law in 2019. These are a set of agreements developed through a collaborative process among the basin states. These measures include voluntary reductions and increased conservation efforts. Although these plans are a step towards the right direction, these are reactive rather than proactive, and may be insufficient if drought conditions continue to persist. It also didn't help that the southwestern states grew so rapidly, and continue to expand to this day, as if there isn't an ongoing water crisis already. Cities like Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Los Angeles have expanded dramatically, with populations far exceeding those anticipated when the compact was signed. Some even go as far as to say that it was completely irresponsible to have created big cities like Phoenix in the first place, given the region will probably be the least habitable of the country by 2050. This population boom has led to increased agricultural and urban water use, placing immense pressure on Lake Mead's resources, constantly overdrawing from the reservoir and lowering its levels faster than anticipated. While over-allocation set the stage for Lake Mead's current troubles, climate change has significantly worsened the situation. The American Southwest is experiencing longer, more intense droughts and higher temperatures due to climate change. These conditions have reduced the snowpack in the Rocky Mountains, a vital source for replenishing the Colorado River, and consequently Lake Mead. The natural annual replenishment of rivers from snowmelt have dropped by 20% than the past century's average, something policymakers probably never thought of when they first established the water allocations a century ago. Warmer temperatures also increase evaporation rates, further diminishing the lake's water levels. Now studies have also shown that the Southwest is undergoing aridification, meaning that the region is facing a long-term trend towards an even drier climate as a consequence of rising greenhouse gases. Research has shown that from 1880 to 2021, the region has warmed by an average of 1.5 degrees Celsius, a trend that is expected to continue. making existing water management strategies even more futile. The lake last approached full capacity in the summers of 1983 and 1999, and at this rate, it seems it may never happen again. So if Lake Mead does reach dead pool status, what does this mean for those that depend on it? Well, economically speaking, reaching dead pool status is guaranteed to spark the collapse of the Colorado River Basin states. This will create a ripple effect not just within the country, but for the global economy as well. The agriculture sector of the region, which uses around 80% of the river system's water supply, will bear the brunt of the lake's depletion. The Colorado River Basin supports an estimated 40 million people and a $5 billion agricultural industry, and its depletion will heavily disrupt the nation's food supply chain. Lake Mead irrigates 2 million acres of farmland, which mainly grows the widely exported alfalfa. The reduction in crop yields would not only affect local markets, but would also disrupt the global food supply chain. This could lead to increased dependency on imports, further straining the nation's economy. Although there have been attempts to introduce efficient irrigation technologies, these practices have been so sporadic and lack widespread adoption across the affected region. Some farmers have even resorted to using groundwater, which is very difficult and expensive to pump. At the dead pool status, the Hoover Dam's hydroelectric operations will cease to exist. This massive loss in electrical supply would require the increased use of fossil fuels or other energy sources, raising energy costs and contributing to environmental damage. The economic impact of increased energy prices would be felt across various sectors, from manufacturing to residential consumers, further straining the economy. Major economic centers such as Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Phoenix, San Diego, and Tucson all rely on Lake Mead for most of its water supply. Las Vegas especially, as 90% of its water supply is derived from the lake. Once Lake Mead dries up, it could mean the end for these cities, and those that rely on Lake Mead the most are doomed to become ghost towns, only existing as shadows of their former glory. When the time comes, citizens of the basin states will be forced to migrate en masse to other parts of the country. This mass exodus will put significant pressure on the receiving cities, which may struggle to accommodate the sudden influx of climate refugees. Of course, let's not forget the profound environmental impact that this will cause. To begin with, Lake Mead's aquatic ecosystem already had its share of struggles due to the presence of invasive species since the dam's construction. The loss of water will cause wildlife to diminish due to increased competition and the possible degradation of water quality. As the lake recedes, the lush areas along the lake's shoreline will dry out, next leading to the death of vegetation and the displacement or death of dependent wildlife. The loss of these habitats would disrupt local biodiversity, leading to a significant reduction in the region's ecological richness. The drying up of Lake Mead would also expose vast areas of lakebed sediment. Without the presence of water, these sediments would become highly susceptible to wind erosion. As a result, the region may see an increase in dust storms, which will pose a serious health risk to local and neighboring populations. These dust storms would also contribute to the loss of topsoil, which would further degrade the land, making it more difficult for vegetation to re-establish in the future. And because bodies of water play such a crucial role in regulating local and regional climate, the loss of Lake Mead would cause extreme temperature fluctuations in the region. If you think that the heat waves in the southwest couldn't get any worse, well, it would only get worse once Lake Mead could no longer act as a heat sink for the local area. At this point, would there still be anything that could be done to save Lake Mead? As I've mentioned earlier, actions taken by authorities have been short-sighted and reactive. Water conservation programs, drought contingency plans, infrastructure improvements, and environmental restoration programs are just some of the efforts that the American government has done so far. While these have been helpful in buying time, they have not been sufficient to address the long-term challenges posed by climate change, prolonged drought, and overuse. To ensure the sustainability of Lake Mead, more comprehensive strategies need to be undertaken. In 2021, a report titled 10 Strategies for Climate Resilience in the Colorado River Basin, which is backed by 7 environmental organizations, laid out 10 proactive, coordinated, and results-oriented strategies to ensure the lake's long-term health, and hopefully to restore safer water levels. This report seeks to shift the focus of policies from simply managing water supply and demand to implementing long-term solutions that address the overarching risks of climate change. One of the solutions proposed is a natural distributed storage strategy. This refers to a series of projects across a watershed that store water in shallow and unconfined aquifers that interact directly with streams, support vegetation, and influence the quality of stream flow. Most of our naturally distributed water storage has been lost due to wetland drainage for agriculture-intensive livestock farming and river channelization. Such strategies are relatively low cost, although may require more time and coordination to successfully implement. For instance, the Bosco Limite area in Italy was able to successfully replenish its groundwater aquifers through reforestation, which has successfully captured precipitation to recharge these natural water stores. Another possible strategy is implementing regenerative agriculture, a broad term that focuses on restoring and improving soil health, which includes its water retention capacities, through farming and grazing practices. Some farms near the Lake Mead area have already started implementing this strategy, although on a sporadic basis. More research is needed to quantify its benefits, but there is an opportunity to implement regenerative agriculture on a mass scale in order to protect farmers from a total loss of water sources. Although this will not directly bring more water to Lake Mead itself, it's a much more sustainable way to reduce the agriculture sector's dependence on the lake. It was also proposed to reduce dust deposition on mountain snow cover in the upper Colorado River basin. While dust may seem too minute to affect such a large environment, it's actually found to affect the timing of snowmelt and runoff, as it accelerates the melting of snow. Key sources of dust near the basin appear to come from livestock grazing, off-highway vehicle use, and drier soil due to increased temperature. Minimizing the production of dust can be done by limiting and monitoring major dust-producing activities in the region, or by implementing restoration strategies to promote ecosystem resilience to wind erosion. Other solutions that are proposed in the report are urban and industrial conservation and reuse, reallocating water rights from retired coal plants, cropping alternatives, and physically covering reservoirs to reduce evaporation. With such promising solutions at hand, the question still stands. Can we act in time to save this vital lake? Only through collaborative efforts and a commitment to sustainable solutions can we hope to secure the future of Lake Mead and the millions who depend on it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.